You're going to learn what it means to be mentally tough as an athlete, the 6 skills or characteristics that you need to build in order to be mentally tough, and then I'm also going to give you one tool that you can use to start building each one of the skills. So when I look at mental toughness, I see mental toughness as the end result. The end result of these different mental skills that we want to build. So if you think of mental toughness in a very similar way to a strong body. It's not just, one simple definition of a strong body, because a strong body will mean different things to different people depending on your sport. But what we do know is that in order to build a strong body, you have to focus on individual muscles. You have to focus on individual body parts, groups of muscles. And when you focus on all of those and then they become put together, that's what leads to a strong body. If we take that same approach to your mental toughness and to your mindset, we see that there are different characteristics, different mental skills that you need, that when you do start to build these skills, what happens is mental toughness develops automatically, because mental toughness is the end result. So what are these 6 mental skills? Well, the 6 mental skills or characteristics are self-awareness, self-confidence, focus, resilience, so the ability to bounce back from failure, the ability to calm your nerves, and then also self-management. So what I'm going to do is go through each one of those mental skills, and I'm also going to talk about a tool that you can use to build each one of the skills. Now, in the timestamps below, I've put each one of these skills, so if there's one that you're more interested in than the other, you can go ahead and click and skip forward to watch that one. So let's start with the first skill, self-awareness. Self-awareness refers to your ability to understand your thoughts and then also understand your emotions. And now it's not just about understanding them or being able to recognize them. It's about knowing why they're there and also understanding the link between your thoughts and your feelings or your emotions. Now, whenever I'm talking about self-awareness with athletes, I cannot overlook the concept or the idea of what's known as the thought-feeling cycle. What the thought-feeling cycle refers to is this idea that we have certain thoughts, and those thoughts lead to feelings. Now, when you have a thought, like a confident thought, for example, and you're thinking, I know that I can do this, I'm going to play great today. How does that make you feel? Do you feel more confident or do you feel less confident? I would imagine about 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, if you're thinking, I've got this, I can do this, I believe in myself, you feel confident. That right there shows us this thought-feeling cycle. Your thoughts lead to your feelings. And now the cycle part comes into play, because if you feel confident, what are you more likely to have? Confident thoughts, I can do this, I believe in myself, or negative thoughts, I suck, I don't think I can do this, I don't believe in myself today. If you are already feeling confident, that feeling will feed back into more thoughts of confidence and belief and knowing that you can do it. That shows us this thought-feeling cycle, and that is the essence of this idea of self-awareness. You need to understand how my thoughts are impacting my feelings. But self-awareness also goes a step deeper than that. It's about understanding when you have these thoughts. So what situations do you have specific thoughts? What causes you to have certain thoughts in certain situations? And then also why these thoughts are making you feel a certain way. For example, if you tend to have a lot of anxious thoughts at the beginning of the game, you need to understand what those thoughts are and why those thoughts are there, so what you're really worried about, and then also how those thoughts make you feel. Well, they make you feel more anxious. When you start to develop this level of self-awareness, the reason that I put this as the first mental skill that you need to be mentally tough is because mental toughness in athletes is all about controlling your mindset, being able to have confidence, like I said earlier, being able to bounce back from mistakes, bounce back from failures, be able to control your emotions. And all of that begins with a level of understanding. If you don't understand your emotions, if you don't understand your thoughts, you have a very tough time controlling them. And now there's a third element of this self-awareness and also even that thought-feeling cycle. And that third element will always be your actions or your behavior. Now, your actions or your behavior, they're part of this because when you start to understand yourself and you start to understand the certain thoughts that you have in moments and situations during games, and you understand how those thoughts make you feel, you also start to recognize the difference in your actions based off the type of thoughts that you have and the type of feelings that you have. And as athletes, that's really what we are after, because you're always after using your mindset or your mental game to elevate your performance. Now, in order to elevate your performance, you need to understand what kinds of thoughts and feelings or attitude makes me play worse, and what kind of thoughts and feelings really elevate and raise my performance. So that really is just this idea of self-awareness. It's all about understanding your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, and how each one plays into the other. So what is the tool or the exercise that you can use to help develop this self-awareness within yourself? Well, it is a very simple exercise of writing. That's it. This is the exercise that I've seen have the most success with athletes. And just also, it's one that I've experienced personally in my own life with developing self-awareness. Because like I was saying earlier, self-awareness is all about understanding. In order to understand anything in our lives, what do we need to do? We need to think about it. We need to spend some time looking at it, examining it, working to understand it. Now, when you start to write, and the type of writing that I'm referring to is just some self-reflective writing, where maybe you write 1 page a day. What this starts to do is it starts to help you recognize patterns in terms of your thinking, recognize patterns in terms of your feelings and your actions. Maybe you'll start writing every day and you'll notice that when you play a team that you've played before and you've played poorly against them, you tend to feel more anxious, or you tend to doubt yourself going into the game because of that relationship that you've had with them in the past where you've performed poorly. You may also start to put some connections there when it comes to why you feel confident. Because I've talked to so many athletes who have said, some days I just show up and I feel amazing, I feel super confident today, but I don't know why. Well, it's in that why that we can start repeating that feeling of confidence, that you have more consistent performances moving forward because you're able to show up to games in a more consistent mindset. So what I recommend you do is just start writing every day. You can do this in the morning, and you can do it after practices and games, you can do it at night, but it's just that simple act of doing some self-reflective writing about, what went on that day, how your game was. You can write about practice. This can also become a post-performance evaluation exercise that you do, where you just go through and you evaluate your game. But it's such a simple but powerful exercise to do to begin developing your self-awareness. Now, the second mental skill that makes you more mentally tough is confidence. You need to be confident in yourself in order to be mentally tough. If you were to describe somebody as mentally tough and you notice that they were doubting themselves all the time, would you really feel like they are mentally tough? No, because they're doubting themselves all the time. And when you doubt yourself, right, when this confidence is not coming from within yourself, that's when you find yourself looking to other people for your confidence. And this is a very dangerous place to find yourself in as an athlete, because that means that opinions of coaches really affect you. Opinions of teammates really affect you. Taunting from other teams will really affect you, because you don't come to the game with that sense of self-confidence. You look at the environment and you look to the environment for your self-confidence. So you have to make sure that you are developing self-confidence so that you are not as vulnerable to the environment, other people, how your performance has been recently, right? That's a big one. Have you been getting a lot of hits? Have you been scoring a lot of points? Have you been playing really good defense? If the answer is no, then you're more likely to have a drop in confidence if your confidence is purely based on performance, other people, the environment, who you're playing. So instead, we want this confidence to come from within. But now, what does confidence really mean? Well, confidence, for me in my work, I break it down into 2 different categories of confidence. We first have confidence in understanding. So it's known as confidence in understanding. Then we also have confidence in execution. Now these 2 are pretty similar because they both have to do with you trusting yourself, but they're different in the sense of what do they benefit within your game. So confidence and understanding is pretty much what it sounds like. You understand that you have skills. This is the basic level of confidence. You have to be able to say, I know that I'm highly skilled. I know that I've been putting in work. I know that I can score a basket. I know that I can score a goal. I know that I can defend. I know that I can run fast. I know I can throw hard. It's just that understanding that you have skills that are necessary to go out there and succeed. That's a basic level of confidence. But this other level of confidence is confidence in execution. Now, what execution means is you trust yourself to go out there today and perform at your highest level. Now, this is the type of confidence that you truly need as an athlete, and it's also the most difficult confidence to build. Because if you have confidence in execution, then you go out there and you say, it doesn't matter who I'm playing today. It doesn't matter how I've played in the past. I trust myself to go out here and perform at my best level today. Now, no matter whether we're trying to build confidence in understanding or confidence in execution, there's one tool that I love to use that really benefits both of these types of confidence, and it is your self-talk. So it's the way that you are talking to yourself. So if we look at why words from other people, or why words of encouragement from other people specifically benefit your confidence, it's because they are talking you up. They are telling you that you are good. They're telling you that you've been playing well. But that's when you look to other people. You want to make sure that you are giving this type of encouragement to yourself. So you're having positive self-talks, saying things like, I've got this, I believe in myself. Now, if we look back to the last mental skill, self-awareness, what did I say was at the start of that cycle that really defines self-awareness? Your thoughts, your thinking. So if you want to generate feelings of confidence that translate into actions and behaviors of confidence, you have to start by having confident thoughts. And that is what self-talk helps you do. So with self-talk, all you do is you make sure that as you're going throughout the day, as you are going into games, you have positive thoughts. But now we have to look at your thinking as a habit. And how does any habit form? Through repetition and time. So what you want to make sure of is that every single day you are practicing having positive thoughts. You can do this through a self-talk routine where you create a list of positive statements, or you can just use it by paying attention to your thoughts throughout the day, trying to reframe negative thoughts, turn them into positive thoughts. Just simply make sure that throughout the day, going into practices, during practices, going into games, during games, you are trying to have more confident and positive thoughts, because that is the best exercise that you can start doing today to begin building this confidence. Now, the third mental skill that works on developing your mental toughness is focus. So with focus, there are two types of focus that we are talking about. One's more in terms of just your general focus with how you think about games. What are you focused on long term? Are you focused more on the outcomes, or are you focused more on the process of your game? But then the other type of focus is when you're actually in the moment during the game. Can you retain concentration on what you're doing at that moment, or do you find yourself looking over here to the crowd, being pulled away by some trash-talking players from the other team over here? So we want to make sure that both of these types of focus are in check for you, so that you understand and you're able to just really control that attention in the present moment. So with outcome versus process focused, like I said, this is more of a long-term or just general approach that you have to your game. Outcome focus means that you're more focused on the results. You're more focused on the outcome of your performance. Now, if there's one just kind of trait or one habit that I see a lot in athletes who are dealing with performance anxiety, fear of failure, perfectionism, it's that they really struggle with not focusing on the outcome. So most of their attention is fixed on the future, on what might happen, on their stats, on what the score will be, whether or not they'll win or lose. Now, granted, thinking about the outcome can have a lot of positive benefits on your game where, you focus on the outcome and it leads to more motivation for you. You focus on the outcome and it drives you to train harder because you want this outcome. So that's where we see it being helpful, but you have to be careful and just know yourself. Once again, this is why self-awareness is so important. You need to know yourself and think, is my focus on the outcome helping me or hurting me? And now the other type of focus is process focused. So being process focused means you're focused more on the process. So what it actually takes to get those outcomes that you want. And if there's one type of focus I always recommend for athletes, it's to be more process focused. Focus on what you need to be doing every practice. Focus on the process of this game that will give you the best chance of getting the outcome that you want. And now being process focused ties into holding your concentration in the moment. Because if you are process focused, you're focused on what you're doing right now in the moment. Because no matter what point you are within the game, the process that you need to be focused on is whatever's taking place right there. Because other than that, you're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future, both of which aren't helping you in the present moment. So the more process focused you can be, you'll actually be more in the moment and you'll be able to hold your concentration more on what you're doing. Now, what's a tool or what's an exercise that you can do that will help with both being more process focused and will help with holding your attention more in the present moment? Well, the exercise that I always recommend is mindfulness. Now, this mindfulness will be mindfulness meditation. And the reason that this helps with both becoming more process focused and also with holding your attention longer is because mindfulness meditation trains your ability to be present, to calm your mind, to slow all those racing thoughts and just be where you are right now with your attention. And that's what you really want during the game, right? No matter what's happening during the game, no matter if it's a pressure situation or the very beginning of the game, you need to be able to control your attention in this moment. Mentally tough athletes can control their attention. They can control their focus. Their focus isn't going from one thing to another. They're not worried so much about the outcome that it distracts them and keeps them from being present. They are absolutely confident in their ability to be focused. And to get to that point, you can use mindfulness meditation. What you do with mindfulness meditation is you sit down in a chair, or you can sit on the floor, just whatever's comfortable for you. You close your eyes, and you just begin focusing on your breath. Take nice deep breaths, make it very rhythmic, just in and out in a nice rhythmic pattern, and focus on your breathing. But now, if you aren't listening to any music, if there aren't too many noises around, what do you think will happen when you try to focus on your breath? You'll start thinking. You'll have thoughts going every which way. You'll start to think about what you'll do later. You'll start to think about maybe how stupid this is. You shouldn't be doing this right now. It's a waste of time. You're thinking about your last game. Your thoughts are going everywhere. What you need to do when that happens is recognize that thought, bring your attention back onto your breath. And the more you do that, right, recognize, pull back, the more you are training your ability to hold that attention in the present moment. The next mental skill is resilience. So resilience means you're able to bounce back from failure. This is also about managing mistakes, right? Managing frustrating situations that happen during games. This can be in an actual game, so can you bounce back from failure within this game? But it can also be bouncing back from failure within your career. Right now, I'm working with a few different athletes who are unfortunately faced with some season-ending injuries. And we've been talking a lot recently about, how can they turn this very frustrating and seemingly negative situation into at least as much of a positive as they can, right? Still seeing the bright side, still seeing a path towards their goals, making sure that they're pushing through their rehab, making sure they're doing everything that they can to recover and come back even stronger than they were before the injury. It takes a very mentally tough athlete to be able to handle something like that and to be able to do that, because injuries and really any sort of failure or setback you face as an athlete can absolutely tear you down. But now if we just focus on this idea of resilience and bouncing back from failure in terms of in the moment during the game, what we want to look at is how you are responding to mistakes. And the reason that I like to start small with just how you respond to mistakes, instead of saying, how can you train big setbacks that will happen within your career as an athlete, is because every athlete faces setbacks, but we don't know how big or small your setbacks will be. But one thing that we can be sure of is that you will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? So you know that you'll be making mistakes, and so that's an opportunity for you to train your ability to be resilient, bounce back from failures, bounce back from mistakes. And when you start to do this on a smaller scale, what ends up happening is you develop the habit of looking at things in a different way. So you change your perspective. And when you change your perspective, it becomes easier when you are faced with a bigger setback to handle it in a more positive way because you've been training yourself all along. So with resilience, what you can do in terms of training this is every time you make a mistake, every time you're faced with a setback, just ask yourself the question, what can I learn? It's a simple question, but what this does during an actual game and after games is it takes these frustrating situations, these mistakes that can seem purely negative, and it gives you the opportunity to reframe them into more of a positive, and not always a positive, but something that's at least productive and helpful for you moving forward. Because the truth is, nothing provides you with as good of information as to how you can improve as an athlete as mistakes do. And so if you can really learn from your mistakes, we know that you'll become a better player. And if you learn from mistakes, you start to bounce back from mistakes better. So just get into the habit of asking yourself the question, how can I learn from that? How can I learn from that? Don't let these setbacks, don't let these mistakes tear you down. Be able to ask, how can I learn from that? Actually learn from it, put that into practice, bounce back, and just get moving forward within your game, whether it is within a game or if we're talking between different games. Now, the next mental skill is calming your nerves. The ability to calm your nerves is very important with this idea of building mental toughness, because athletes who are very anxious or athletes who are getting overly nervous before games, it will be tough to be mentally tough. And I can say that from a lot of personal experience, because one of the, if not the main mental game challenge that I dealt with as an athlete from a very early age was intense feelings of performance anxiety. I dealt with a lot of performance anxiety where I would be terrified to play. My legs would shake, my heart would just absolutely race. And it only got worse, the older that I got, until I finally started working on it. But when I felt so anxious going into games, I would not classify myself as mentally tough, because the opponent that I was playing, who was watching, how I performed recently, all of that affected my nerves and all of that affected my anxiety, to the point where I felt very much less confident because of how anxious I felt. So when we know that, we also know that building the skill of being able to calm your anxiety and being able to calm your nerves is extremely important if you want to be a mentally tough athlete. What it means to calm your nerves is not eliminating all nerves. So one thing I always talk to athletes about is this idea of acceptance. If we're trying to manage anxiety, trying to manage nervousness, we have to start with accepting what we feel in the moment. Because if you are resisting the anxiety, if you're resisting the nerves, thinking, I shouldn't feel nervous, I wish I didn't feel nervous, well, you're only focusing more on your anxiety. And the more you focus on your anxiety, the worse your anxiety or your nervousness gets. So we have to start with acceptance. So we're not trying to completely eliminate it, because if you try to completely eliminate it, and that's your goal, what happens as soon as you notice yourself feeling nervous or anxious? You feel like you failed. As you say, I'm supposed to not feel this at all, but then you feel it, and now it almost feels like just complete defeat, and the nerves and the anxiety have taken control over you. So we're not trying to eliminate it, but we're trying to manage it. And what it means to manage it is you reduce the physical symptoms, and you are also able to not focus so much on it, so you free yourself to focus on other parts of your game, more than likely process and controllable parts of your game that will help you play better. So the tool that you can use to help with calming your nerves is something known as 5x5 breathing. What 5x5 breathing is a form of count breathing, where whenever you are feeling nervous, you breathe in for a count of 5, then you breathe out for a count of 5. And you don't want to do this just once. You want to do it over and over and over again. The reason that I've found so much success with this is because, number one, instead of holding your breath, right, instead of having shallow breathing, which is a very common symptom of anxiety and nervousness, you start to take deeper breaths, and you have rhythmic breaths. It's just in and out. So you start to get into the rhythm and the flow, so you're more in the present moment. But also what happens, while you're reducing those physical symptoms by taking deep breaths, you start to reel that attention in, right? So instead of being focused on the future, what might happen, all these worries, you start to reel this attention in, and you put it back into the present moment, because you are just focusing on the counting. Now, once you've done the counting, you start calming yourself down. Then I always suggest, use some self-talk. Start talking to yourself in a way that will build your confidence. But to calm your nerves before games, one of the best tools that you can use is just this idea of the 5x5 count breathing. Then the last exercise, or the last mental skill, for this mental toughness is self-management. Now, self-management, in essence, this is the culmination of all these other 5 mental skills that I've mentioned so far. Because self-management means you are able to control your thoughts, control your emotions, control your actions. And this one really stands out to me when an athlete is able to manage their emotions and their reactions to frustrations, right? Especially bad calls during a game. I was talking with a baseball player yesterday about some games that he's had recently where he got upset at the umpire for some bad calls. He started talking with the umpire, and you could tell that he was just very, very upset about what happened. Now, granted, they sounded like pretty bad calls, and I imagine they were bad calls. But bad calls happen. Frustrating things happen. What you want to make sure of is that you're able to manage your emotions in this moment. So this last skill that really just culminates all these other skills and makes you a mentally tough athlete is all about managing your emotions and your actions that follow those emotions. And once again, like I said at the very beginning of the video with self-awareness, all of this begins with your thinking. So if you can start to control your thinking, you start to manage these emotions, manage these actions. But we've already talked about controlling your thinking a little bit with the self-talk, the tool that you're using of the self-talk with the confidence skill. With self-management, though, what you want to start doing is something known as consciously responding. It's just this practice where you go throughout your day and you choose some moments where you want to respond in a more controlled manner. You can start out small. Don't start out with, the moments where there's a terrible call during a game where you know that all those emotions are just going to boil up inside of you. Start small, just small frustrations that you face throughout the day, and try to choose how you respond. So this might take you pausing for a second, maybe taking a breath, and then thinking, how do I want to respond right here? But the more you go through this exercise, the more you are practicing the skill of managing your reactions. And the more you can manage your reactions, the more you will change your reactions in these moments when you are reacting in a way that you don't necessarily like. So practice consciously responding as a way to be building this final skill of mental toughness, which is self-management. So those are the 6 mental skills or characteristics that make up a mentally tough athlete. Now, if you have any questions about any of those skills, or you would like me to go into more detail on any of the skills, please leave a comment below. Now, there are also a few options for you if you would like more of an in-depth approach or more personalized approach to building your mental toughness as an athlete. One option is for younger athletes. So this is for you if you are a parent of a younger athlete watching, and it's my mental toughness course for kids. Another option is my mental training advantage program that is great for high school, college, and professional athletes. And then I also have the option for one-on-one mental performance coaching. Now, I've put links to learn more about all 3 of those in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video on building mental toughness. And if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.